Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum. We would like to welcome you to this very special session with Sister Hina Musabji um, on changes to the immigration law. As you know, we have had a lot of changes through the current administration, and Alhamdulillah, we're blessed to have an amazing resource in our community who can help us guide us through this and navigate us through these challenging times and kind of better understand what we have going on and how the changes affect our lives and our visa statuses. My name is Ali Hasnali. I'm the current president of the New York Jamaat. And I'm just gonna, Sister Hina, thank you once again. I really want to welcome you to our community, although this is being viewed, I believe, nationwide through the Nasimco broadcast. But Alhamdulillah, we're really blessed to have you. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum. You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me to speak on this topic.
Asant. So I'm just gonna start with a quick bio of Sister Hina Musabji. She is a wife, alhamdulillah, a mother of three, and an attorney. She's one of the founders and co-runs the Pro Bono Network, a legal aid nonprofit organization that brings attorneys to those in dire need of legal assistance. She is simultaneously the principal attorney at Musabji Law Offices, focusing on civil rights and immigration and nationality law. Previously, Sister Hina was a partner at Amal Law Group, heading the immigration department. She was the Council of American Islamic Relations, also known as CARE, the Chicago chapter's first staff attorney, counseling its constituency on civil rights and immigration, alhamdulillah. During and after law school, Sister Hina has served as the director of the Sex Trafficking Opposition and Prevention Project with the International Human Rights Law Institute, where she worked on legislation and advocacy of minors forced into sex tourism in Costa Rica. She also worked with the Immigrant Justice Center throughout law school, and continues with the organization as a volunteer. She's also serves on the School District 181 Foundation Board, and Alhamdulillah, she also gives back at her mosque, and she's on the board at her mosque as well. Alhamdulillah, mashallah, Sister Hina, it's, when I read this bio, I felt like it belonged in an episode of The Blacklist or something. Like it's the perfect character that belongs in there with all the accolades you have. I think you forgot to mention that you used to be a venture capitalist, but I mean, that's something that, we'll leave for a different.
That's like way back in my past. And for those of you who don't know, Ali and I have known each other since we were children. So we apologize in advance for for any jokes or plugs we make at each other. But yeah, you made me sound better than I actually for that.
Awesome. No, absolutely. We're blessed. It's something that the blessing that this, COVID-19 crisis has had, the silver lining is that it's allowed us to showcase, so much talent we have in our community that we would never even tap into or even kind of bring to light as well. So it's definitely something that, we are blessed to have you here. And Alhamdulillah, we're really appreciative of your time for us and the community as well at large. Um, Sister Hina, maybe we can start with just if you can just give us a quick overview of what the Pro Bono Network is and what it does.
I'd be happy to. So,
Mhm.
I've been practicing immigration law in some form for about 15 years. And about 9 years ago, colleagues of mine and we came up with this idea to create the ability to help the most vulnerable in our community, right? So, in like criminal cases, you're aware there's these Miranda warnings, right? You have the right to remain silent. If you do not have an attorney, one will be appointed to you. But in civil cases, which are often cases of human rights, like safety from an abuser, access to safe housing, the ability to get a job, you don't have an attorney assigned to you if you cannot afford one, right? You're left without legal representation. So Pro Bono Network tried to come up with an idea to kind of bridge that justice gap and making sure that those in need, that income did not depend on whether you had access to an attorney or not. It's been a passion project that started, 9 years ago, and it's grown into a network of over 450, volunteer attorneys, where we get to help thousands of clients every year, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, that's absolutely amazing. And I think that's a perfect segue for us to show a quick video, if you don't mind, so that our viewers can kind of get a better understanding of what this network is and the amazing work that you guys do.
The need for civil legal aid is so huge, right? There are not enough attorneys to serve all the people who need help. And income should not be a barrier to seeking justice. Pro Bono Network, to me, is this amazing ability to empower attorneys to give back to others. We are bringing more attorneys to those in need.
We are actually serving clients who wouldn't get served otherwise because we're creating projects that specifically address needs that the legal service agencies have told us that they can't serve.
They take care of the training and supervision of their attorneys. The volunteer model of the Pro Bono Network makes it easy for agencies to work with this organization.
We have project managers, we have mentors, we have subject matter experts, and we're paired with another attorney for bigger cases. So you have support, you have training, you have a partner.
Pro Bono Network is great for helping people. So far, I've been primarily writing wills and end-of-life documents, and I know that there are a lot of people who need help doing things. They can't afford to go to a lawyer to do it.
I was going through a very tough situation, a domestic situation. My attorneys made it just smooth and easy, and I felt good again. I felt safe.
Pro Bono Network actually serves as a bridge between two untapped needs. On the one hand, we're serving attorneys who want to do legal work, have wonderful skills to be able to do legal work. And then on the other hand, it's our clients. Our clients have critical legal needs, so we bring those two groups together and we serve both of their needs while doing it.
Yo estaba buscando la ayuda legal porque realmente tenía miedo de que de verdad él me quitara al niño. Entonces, después de eso fue que yo me enteré que podía como calificar para un tipo de visa, la visa U. Pero hasta el momento que yo busqué esa ayuda con Pro Bono Network, no sabía que realmente podía calificar para ese tipo de ayuda. Recuerdo claramente el día que fui a recoger mi permiso de trabajo a las oficinas de Pro Bono Network. Fue un día muy especial para mí.
Since PBN was founded in 2011, hundreds of volunteer lawyers have served thousands of low-income individuals by providing tens of thousands of hours of free legal service. And we've only been able to do that because of the very generous support of our donors.
The reaction that you get from clients is wonderful. They have a legal problem, you're able to help them with it, and that's very gratifying.
Que muchísimas gracias por todo su tiempo que dieron conmigo y de verdad aprecio mucho lo que hicieron por mí.
Subhanallah, this is an amazing organization, and I'll be first to admit that it's I wasn't even aware of the amazing work you guys do, and when I was watching the video, I was actually reminded of a common one of the famous stories of our holy prophet, may peace be upon him, that he was walking, he was walking somewhere in haste with his companions, and someone just stopped him and says, "You know what? Explain to me your religion, as quickly as you can." So his companions are like, "What are you talking about? This guy is in a rush. What do you mean explain the religion?" So the prophet said, I can answer this question. Leave it to me." And he simply says, the religion can be summarized into, four aspects: the responsibility to yourself, your responsibility to your Lord, and then your responsibility to those around you. And how often do we forget that assistance is not just to our community, to our Shias, but even assistance to those who just cannot afford, regardless of the religion, the race, the creed, anything. And I think that's one thing that just was resounding from this video is how amazing the work you guys do is. Just kind of anyone who needs the support is so important to provide it to them in these times.
Alhamdulillah, I do feel blessed to be able to do this work and give back. I think it gives an opportunity for both our volunteers and supporters, also giving them an opportunity to participate in giving back in such a monumental way, because legal help is not easy to find without cost. So Alhamdulillah, it's an amazing. I'm just blessed to be at a point in my career where I can do this type of work.
Yeah, and Alhamdulillah, even we see during the TV shows, during the CNN right now, when I watch the news, is that how many those who are undocumented are really struggling to not only just go to the hospitals, but to get access to these basic services that otherwise they would not think twice to get. So I think it's unbelievable how much you guys are doing, and may Allah Subhanahu wa Taala bless you guys and continue to provide you with the strength to do so. Just a side note for our viewers, you'll notice a banner at the bottom. Sijni is proud to partner with the Pro Bono Network to help them with any funding that we can help raise. So please, if you feel like this is an important cause, and I really hope you do, we've set up a special fund through our text messaging. You can simply text to our fundraising number 516-299-9952. Just text the word donate. You will receive a menu of where you want to donate, and the Pro Bono Network, inshallah, should be part of that as well. So please, if you whatever you can contribute, it goes a long way, and may Allah Subhanahu wa Taala help you in your assistance to this. So, Sister Hina,
Alhamdulillah,
maybe we can just
I really do
yeah,
appreciate
go ahead.
that, especially right now during COVID, where funding resources have been cut off and the need has increased. So I'm very grateful to both Sijni and Nasimco for allowing that as an option for our organization.
Awesome. It sounds like the least we can do. So, Sister Hina, maybe we can just kind of level set on the discussion for today in terms of the immigration changes, and maybe we can have you provide a quick overview of what are the recent changes. Then we can kind of take a deep dive into those as well.
Of course. So, as everyone is experiencing, even at home and work, COVID-19, this pandemic, this crisis has created a lot of changes, right? We're, sheltering at home, we have altered employment situations, and there's changes in the law as well. That hasn't been exempt. So what I wanted to focus this discussion on today, because immigration law in general is huge. I apologize. I speak with my hands. My hands will be moving constantly. Just bear with me.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's
since the last few years, we know you. We've been used to that, having a 6 feet distance applied a different way when we were dealing with you. So don't worry about that.
Right, you won't get hit in the face today. You'll just have to watch me from the screen. Yeah, so a lot of things have changed for all of us, and the body of immigration law, which is so vast, hasn't. So I really do want to focus today, because we only have a short amount of time, on the current changes to immigration law that have been made because of COVID or post-COVID, and in this administration, right? So in the past few years, we've seen a change in the way our immigration law and processing has worked. This administration uses a lot of fear to scare people who are in the immigration process, but staying informed is the best way to stay on top of it. So what I will say is some of the general comments. Before we get into a lot of the law and the changes, I want to talk about certain terms that I'm going to use. To come into the United States or to be validly in the United States, you need a visa. And that can be either a non-immigrant visa or an immigrant visa. Non-immigrant visas are those visas that kind of come in for with a temporary intention, where you're coming in for a visit or as a student or as a temporary worker. I'm hearing feedback.
Is that
So
good now?
either of yep, that's good, I think. So where was I? Yes. So non-immigrant visas are those temporary stays. Immigrant visas are when you're coming in as a lawful permanent resident, so as a green card holder. So those are the kind of two categories we'll be talking about right now and today, and kind of as we're discussing. When I say immigrant visa holder, I mean like a green card holder, so somebody applies to become. When I say non-immigrant visa, I mean somebody who's here for a temporary stay.
Okay.
I can kind of get into some of the changes right now, Ali, unless you have any questions at this point.
Yeah. So I guess from that perspective, our community in particular, locally Sydney, and I feel like even the Muslim communities, a lot of our individuals, are mostly entrepreneurs, and have had a lot of challenges with respect to COVID, having to shut down their offices, and a lot of the employees have been H-1B workers, for example. And I was wondering, how that, how they would be affected as a result of their loss of job, and would that affect their visa status from that perspective?
Yes, I'm good. I love that you brought up H-1B and employment issues. Save that for the end of our talk, just because it's a little bit more nuanced. And unfortunately, they haven't made a lot of good changes or flexibilities to help that. And that body of law, that whole employment immigration, is a very rigid body. So those of you who are employers or are H-1B visa holders, you know how that is, the labor certifications. And if especially in light of all that's happening, if you're taking an employee, if you want to furlough them or move them to part-time, there's a lot of intricate law that goes into it. And as of now, we haven't heard anything from the federal government to make that portion of our law flexible. It's still pretty rigid. And I'll do my best to address that kind of at the end with, the 60-day grace period and how that works. But yes, I do recommend that if you have immigration employment issues right now as an employer, especially when you're trying to get advice on what to with these changing circumstances, and everything's changing, businesses are closing, we're modifying the way we work. Please, please, please consult with an immigration attorney, because if you do take somebody off your payroll who is an H-1B visa holder, you may still be liable for back pay during that time. There's all these issues that arise. So because of the way employment immigration works, and you're making modifications, most of our H-1Bs are essential workers, so a lot of businesses are doing that. But if it's in a situation where you need to, consult an immigration attorney to kind of walk you through that process. But I will address it again at the end, with some specific
Yeah, that's
situations.
perfect. And also, I guess, with all of these offices being closed, I'm assuming, the government offices are also closed. How does that affect to the immigration services?
Yeah. So since March 18th, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services has suspended all their services. So that means, and right now it's until June 4th. Previously, it was a date in May, I think it was May 4th. So now it's until June 4th. And I'm assuming it's going to continue to get extended, in light of what's going on currently. But that means no biometrics appointment. So if you filed an application where you have to go get fingerprinted and your photo taken, all of those support centers are currently closed. So that won't be happening. So your application is just kind of on hold. If you applied for your green card here, there are no interviews right now. That's old. Sometimes when you apply, you can get an InfoPass appointment to go get more information on your case. That is also suspended. There's no naturalization. So the sad part for a lot of our clients was they suspended, people who had finished the whole citizenship process. They were so close. All they had to go in was get their oath ceremony done. That has also been canceled. So citizenship interviews, oath naturalization ceremonies, everything right now until June 4th, is canceled. I do have a website that you guys should always check on if you are in a situation where you need an interview, you need services, and want to know when things are going back up. USCIS.gov is the main USCIS website, but they have a special section. So if you go to USCIS.gov /coronavirus, it'll give you the most updated information on that. And you can also see, when offices open up again, if you need to, contact one of them. So that's a good way to kind of keep updated. If you're doing any paper applications like service centers and lockboxes, those will still take your case. They have limited staff, limited operations, but they are still continuing to accept applications that come in either online or via mail. But of course, there'll be delays. We're seeing already, before even the coronavirus regulations came in, we were already seeing a lot of delays under this administration. So cases that were normally, processing months are now double. I think at the end of this will be quadruple the normal times that it was normally
So
taking.
are filings still being accepted right now for
Right. Yes. So paper filings within the U.S. are still being accepted right now, and also electronic ones online through USCIS. That they'll still accept the cases; they're just not processing very quickly. And like I said, if you have a biometrics appointment that goes along with your application, that won't be happening, so your case will be on hold.
Right, right. And just a program note, for those of you who are watching the program, if you have a question you would like to submit it, you see that little yellow box there. It tells you instructions of what to do. Slido.com and enter the code Sydney Immigration. The hashtag is already there on the site. You just have to enter citizen immigration, and you can submit questions there as well. Inshallah, as we do receive more questions, we will be answering it as well. Um,
And I do see
so
that kind
yeah.
of goes along with what I just said did come in. So the question was, this might apply to a few people, that my green card has expired, and my biometrics appointment is postponed indefinitely. What can you advise? Right now everything is on hold. So my advice is the uscis.gov website will keep you updated on when that will open up again. Right now, until June 4th, everything is closed. So yes, your application will be on hold.
So no, still considered in good standing, or are you considered pretty much the opposite of that, I guess?
After your case is filed, you mean, and you're waiting?
No, like this individual who said that his or her green card is expired. Um, would they face any limitations to any services that with respect to that?
No, so as long as they've applied for the renewal of their green card, they should be fine right now. There should be no interruption during this time. But they should,
Gotcha.
as long as renewal was filed, right? If the renewal was not filed, then there's more of an issue and complications.
Yeah, yeah,
But I'm assuming
and
in this question they did file because they're waiting for their biometrics.
yeah.
And so, on a little side note, those who have employment authorizations that are expiring, and you apply to extend that, they are waiving the biometrics appointment for that service because they know that they cannot accommodate having you come in for your biometrics.
Yeah. And we see so much on TV about how the current administration is kind of discouraging people from taking advantage of public um, benefits as a result of this COVID crisis. Is that something maybe you can shed some light on that on how that
Yeah,
would
sure.
impact someone?
Of course. So there's this public rule charge, which many of you might have heard about, where if you want to at some point apply for a green card and then eventually citizenship, they want to make sure that you will not become a public charge at a future date, meaning that using government resources for support. Now, in light of COVID, because this is a health crisis and it is extenuating circumstances, the government actually has understood that and they have allowed for a public charge exception. Now, if you need health related assistance because of COVID, if you need public benefits because you've lost your job, they are making an exception for COVID. But I would highly, highly recommend just knowing how this body of law works to document all your reasons for why you accepted services, and document the services that came in, and to be able to show that it was for a temporal time only during COVID. So there is an exception to the rule for this crisis. And I can't emphasize enough that you should document all this so that when it does come time for you to file your green card application, you have a nice little neat package showing, look, we had a government exception. I accepted public aid during this time under the exception for reasons XYZ, just to keep it very clean. So yes, you can, Medicaid or, health benefits to get tested or treatment for COVID is fine. If you are taking other means tested public benefits because you've lost your job because of COVID, that's fine too. Just document everything, the reasoning for acceptance, as well as the public benefits you did
So
take.
with the temporary point there, does that mean that if I signed up for Medicaid, right, to receive medical treatment, does that mean that I have to kind of turn that off and not accept those
Well,
services?
Well, you'll know if you're going in and how you're paying for things. So when you're going in for a COVID-related things and you're using these public benefits, that's okay. If you go in the future for whatever, I would make it clear that you're, paying out of pocket or however else you would normally pay for your medical
Right, and just
expenses.
have evidence
The
of
whole
that so
point
that
of
you
this
can
is,
show.
right. The whole point is the government, didn't want to create another health issue where people who were having symptoms or undergoing this, we're not seeing medical care or seeking out medical care because we want to make sure, our population as a whole stays healthy. So there's a public, health issue involved there.
Yeah, so we have two more questions submitted before we move on to our next topic. Sister Hina, I'm not sure if you want to review these, but
Yeah,
the
I'm going to
first
share
one
this.
is concerning
So,
a fiance.
I think I'm going to. So when we, I do want to get into this presidential proclamation that puts some
Yeah.
restrictions on travel, and I think I'll be able to answer some of that during that
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah. So let's then take a deep dive into the proclamation topic, and maybe if you
Yeah.
could just kind of shed some more light on that as well.
Of course. So on April 23rd, or actually on April 22nd, our president announced this proclamation, which was for the purpose was to suspend the entry of immigrants who prevent risk to our labor market since COVID. That was the title. And in the media and everywhere else, we call it the immigration ban. So who does this affect? Who does this truly affect? It's anybody who was outside of the country on April 23rd and who does not have a valid U.S. visa, an immigrant visa. So anyone applying for an immigrant visa abroad will be temporarily banned. So this is only temporary, right? So it went into effect on April 23rd, and it'll go for 60 days. Now, he has left open the possibility of it being extended for a longer period of time, but right now we see it's for 60 days. And there are exemptions, right? They have made it so spouses, citizens, even if they're living abroad, they are exempt from this ban. Green card holders, lawful permanent residents who already have their green card, they're exempt. It's more, the ban applies more to those who are outside of the U.S. and are applying for a green card. Children of U.S. citizens under the age of 21, if you're petitioning for your child who's under the age of 21 and they're living abroad, they are okay too. They do not fall under the ban. And then individuals who are entering as a physician, nurse, healthcare professional, other essential medical worker to help alleviate the COVID-19 crisis, they are also allowed. And it also does not apply to refugee and asylum seekers, right? So all those categories are exempt. Who it does apply to and who it does affect is those who are outside of the U.S. who do not have a green card or immigrant visa issued already and are not the spouse or child of a U.S. citizen. All those people. Now, I see there's a question on like fiance visas. So a fiance visa is considered a non-immigrant visa. So non-immigrant visas are not really a part of this ban. So it will not apply to them. If you have a fiance abroad and they're coming in on a, what's called a K-1 fiance visa, the ban does not apply to them. And then once they get here, they are a spouse of a U.S. citizen, so then they're fine to apply for their green card too. So the ban does not apply to you. Let's see. Oh, if you're one question that comes up a lot, parents of green card holders, they are subject to the ban. Parents of U.S. citizens are also subject to the ban if they're abroad right now. And the ban doesn't mean they're banned for life. They're just banned for now, for these 60 days, which could be extended to longer. Another question we get a lot too is if the green card is already under process within the U.S., the ban does not apply for you because you're already in the U.S. If you are abroad and some family members applying for a green card for you, then yes, the ban does apply for 60 days.
And
Which means they're not
and
going to
the
reject
ban,
your application. It's just a
yeah,
stop.
was the ban covering a specific set of countries, or was it just in general?
It's in general. It's a general ban across the board.
So it's not one of those
And
like
it's
Muslim bans or whatever.
No, we already have a Muslim ban in existence, which we could do a whole other conference on or panel on, I'm sure. But this is specific to what they're calling to kind of preserve our economic interests during coronavirus. If you're a student visa holder in one of our border countries, for example, like Canada, and you have an F1 visa, the borders are closed for essential or for non-essential travel, but you can still come and go. That's not a problem. The ban does not apply to that situation as well. And let me look at these questions. Oh, we have lots of questions. To U.S. over year. Okay, so there's a really good question. It says, my father has a green card, but hasn't entered the U.S. in over a year. Will he have a problem entering the U.S. once the borders open? So green card holders, right, it's assumed that your place of permanent residence is here in the U.S. If you are going to be out longer than a year, you should contact the local consulate and make sure we get the appropriate paperwork together. This is all general advice, right? I'm going to respond to all these questions generally. There might be nuances within your case that this might not apply to, but in general, if you're out of the country for over a year on a green card or plan to be out of the country for over a year on the green card, you should contact your local consulate and make sure you file the appropriate paperwork so that you can get paroled back into the country and not lose your green card status. That's very important. I have a question here on, we've already submitted our citizenship application and are waiting the reply for our green cards are expiring. Okay, if your green cards are expiring, and technically you have an N-400 pending, and in normal circumstances that should be fine. As a preventative measure, you can extend your green card. There's an online form. You can extend your green card so it's not expiring while you're waiting for N-400, because since everything is on hold right now, we don't know how much longer they're going to keep increasing this. It's better just to be safe and have that extension in place. And the law, during this administration has changed so rapidly to the point where I should ask for forgiveness if I misquote anything that has changed like between the last 24 hours. Please forgive me and always check uscis.gov. I'm not the final authority. Our government is, unfortunately. Let's see. Some of these questions are very targeted to your specific situation, so I'm going to try to answer them generally. If you're a U.S. citizen and have filed for your family, your spouse, and children out of the U.S., and you are a U.S. citizen, the ban doesn't apply to you. So you can file your I-130, which is the petition for alien relative, no problem whatsoever. I think I've addressed most of the questions that have come in. But I do, if it's okay, I want to divert a little bit, unless there's more questions on the ban itself. I do want to talk about people who are, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we're good for now. So maybe we can go how you wish you wanted to go. Proceed. Go ahead.
Okay, so I want to make a small announcement for anybody who's here on a visitor visa. You came in earlier this year on visa, and then cancellations of flights and the inability to leave the country. So you're kind of stuck in the US. So if you came in here, early this year, February, March, your stay is valid for 6 months. And then, I have some clients who came in January, so they were planning on staying till like mid-March. Their flight got canceled, they couldn't get out. And now we're approaching the end of their valid stay of 6 months. So what we are telling everybody to do is, if you're approaching stay, if you're within 45 days of the end of your stay, please file for an extension of your status, right? And for any situation on a non-immigrant visa, if you have your I-94, which is your authorized period of stay, it is expiring. Either do an extension of status or a change of status, so you can keep your status current and you're not accruing unlawful presence. So in the future, when you apply for other immigration benefits, you don't want to be barred or banned from getting that immigration benefit because you were here during COVID and couldn't get out. And there was a way for you to waive that. They're offering a lot of flexibility in that kind of. If you're stuck here because of COVID, they will extend your stay without much of a problem. If you have to change your status, they'll do that. If you're here on a student visa, can't get back home, there's situations where through extenuating circumstances, you can apply for a work permit, so you can support yourself, which is not usually the norm with F1 visa. So there's not a lot of flexibility in like the labor employment side, but on the non-immigrant humanitarian side, we're seeing a little bit more flexibility.
And we've also seen some cases, right, where if you work in the medical field, and if you're able to assist as a frontline worker, I think we've seen some of those cases as well, right?
Yes, those are allowed. So anybody who is a healthcare worker, nurse, any sort of essential worker, even people who are researchers who are helping come up with like a vaccine or participating in any of this, healthcare research and innovation, you're allowed into the country on those bases. So that's something they're opening up for because, everybody's fighting to move on from this and come up with solutions. So if you're a support worker, healthcare, or researcher involved with COVID help, you are allowed to come into the country. Contact your and find out the best process and how to document to get that kind of a visa.
Yeah, and then we have one more question submitted. I'm not sure if it's too specific, but the question is, could I experience any delays in my EB-5 visa process as a result of the executive order?
So certain, yes, but I guess there's delays on. Well, I'm going to make a blanket statement. There's delays on everything right now. There are some exceptions for employment-related things. I'm wary to get into a lot of the employment issues because that's a huge can of worms, and it's very specific on your individual situation. So for that, maybe I can share my contact info offline, or I can. I would definitely recommend consulting with an immigration attorney for anything employment related.
Yeah, and
There,
and for
there
those of
is.
you who would like to contact Sister Hina, you can email myself, and I'm happy to forward the contact details. You can email
That'd be
me at
great.
president@disney.org, and I'll be happy to share the contact details as well. Sorry, Sister Hina, I
And I want
interrupted
to.
you before.
No, you're fine. So, if we're talking about this presidential proclamation, because the executive order is something a little bit different, but this proclamation that happened on the 23rd, I just want to make sure that I did quote this correctly. EB-5 visa applicants, they're exempt from the ban. So the ban does not. If you're an EB-5 investor, then it does not apply to you. So maybe that helps answer that question that was just
Right.
asked. Yeah, so there are a lot of changes. There is a lot happening. The procedures were already messy as it was. And this is just making things a little bit more complicated. Um, so, my take home points are if your stay is expiring, do whatever you can to extend, right? If you are an H-1B and you've had to leave employment, there is that 60-day grace period. So that's a possibility of you trying to figure out what you want to do. If you are an employer, I know I've already spoken to this, but I'm just going to put it on again, and you have H-1B visa holders that you need to kind of figure out what to do during this uncertain time. Maybe it'd be helpful if I put together and sent it to you, put it out on the
That'd
website
be
for.
perfect. We'd be happy to share
Yeah,
with the
you know
folks.
what?
Yeah.
Let me after we get off this seminar, let me kind of put together, a few links that'll be helpful to kind of get you guys all started. And then if you feel after that you should consult with an attorney, then you should for sure. So I have a couple more questions that I'm going to look at. I've sponsored my mom, and we've received notification to file paperwork for interview. Okay, so you know, the way consular processing works when you're sponsoring a family member abroad is you start at a USCIS office with the petition. Then that petition goes to the National Visa Center, which is still in the United States. You can, and so this is the paperwork for the interview that this person is talking about in their question. You can go ahead and pay the filing fees, give them the documentation, but know that that information will likely not be sent to the consulate until the ban is lifted. Or even if it is sent to the consulate, then it'll be put on hold until the ban is lifted. And NVC has also, and the State Department has also told us that anytime you pay any of these visa filing fees, they'll keep that filing fee valid for a year right now, and that might be even extended greater if this crisis continues in the way it's continuing. If someone has been denied a visa to the U.S. twice, do you think that diminishes? Yeah. So if you've been denied a visa in the past, it is more likely than not you'll be denied in the future, but that doesn't mean you should try. I would recommend that contact an immigration professional to kind of evaluate your specific case and see what needs to be done in that situation. Yes. But so just if I can summarize a little bit, the ban does not apply to non-immigrant visa holders. The ban, it's not going to allow just like recreational travel for non-immigrant visa, but if you're here for like coming in for work or for as a student, you should be allowed to come in, or as a fiance, you should be allowed to come in. If you're abroad and applying for a green card, unless you fall into the exceptions of being a spouse or child of a U.S. citizen, and some of the other things I mentioned, like being an asylum seeker, etc., the ban does not apply. But for everyone
So
else,
is there so is there a blanket closure on all U.S. embassies globally?
So many of the U.S. embassies abroad are either closed or have minimal services, right? So if they are allowing for appointments for emergency services. So, if there's a humanitarian issue, medical issue, you have to be paroled into the U.S. Like those services are still open if you have, any sort of unusual circumstance. But right now, and until, the 60-day ban as well, there's either temporary, like very limited services. They're not doing interviews, they're not doing their general, walk-ins or anything like that right now.
Right, right. Thank you for that. So we don't have any additional questions submitted yet, so I'm not sure if you want to move on to our next topic. I think we covered the application processing delays, right? I'm not sure if you want to add anything
Yeah, so
else to that topic.
I will add a little bit to the application processing delays. So, you know, a common thing I get from people who contact me will be like, well, my brother, sister's, chachi's, uncle's, cat's friend, applied and they got their, visa in 4 months or whatever, the situation is. And how come it's taking so long? I want to emphasize that since this administration has come into place, denials have been up, quotas have gone down. What was happening 5 years ago is not happening now. What was happening, 4 years ago is not happening now. And as an immigration practitioner, for me, that's really sad because one of the joys of being in this area of law is to be able to keep families together or let people, experience the American dream or, expand their livelihood. And when we're increasingly being told, or having to tell our clients that, listen, there's a high likelihood this is not going to work for you. Come up with a plan B. It's really disheartening. So then, in terms of delays, it is times have like quadrupled, right? And anytime I have a client come to me when we talk about timelines, I just tell them that I can't really give you one right now. I can give you a giant range. Like, here's what it's supposed to be. Here's what it was last month as we've gotten reporting from the offices. I have no idea what the future holds when we are at limited services by our government where they're not, operating at full capacity, and the backlog keeps getting huge. And where this becomes an even bigger concern is we have this election coming up this year, right? And we have these naturalization, citizenship applications of people who would have been voting come this November, who are
Yeah.
not going to be able to because these applications are not processed. For me, that's disheartening, right? That this whole and naturalization applications went up this year at the beginning of this year before COVID, and those are not going to be adjudicated in time for individuals to participate in the election. It can be
Yeah,
seen
that's
as
definitely sad. I agree.
yeah. Trying to think of any other changes in law. I was looking to my notes to see if there's anything else, but I will put
So
together a list for you to share
yeah,
of resources.
I will be happy to share it. So one more question submitted. We already paid for the N400 fees. Do we have to still pay for a green card extension?
Yeah, so if you file for the green card extension, so you don't, this is technically you don't have to do this, right? If you filed your N400, you should be okay to show your receipt notice for the N400, and if you've gotten your receipt notice, you shouldn't be fine. Some people are taking a precautionary measure because we don't know how long this is all going to go on for, and if you need documentation for your benefits or anything else to show, it's always easier to show a valid green card. So yeah, you do have to pay the fees for that to process that. It can be done online. Otherwise you're not, invalid in this country if you've applied and you have your N400. Now, if your N400, your citizenship gets denied for any reason, then, you'll have to extend, but they look at it skeptically if you don't extend within a reasonable time, but you can show that your green card, your citizenship application is pending. But that also opens up a potential of another can of worms where they can, take away your green card. But we don't want that to happen to anybody. So if you can afford it, and you can extend, then it's truly a precautionary measure. It's not required by any means.
Right, right. Okay, perfect. I think that's all of the questions. I'm not sure if you want to get into the H-1B topic at this point.
I mean, I can speak to it a little bit. Let me pull up my notes on that too, because there's a lot. There's a lot, especially especially in the current stance. And it really on what each individual is doing for their company. And this is really more for employers to know. Yes, the employee wants to know too, but the employers have a lot of responsibility. So when you apply for your immigration, and I'm sorry I'm not looking at the screen, I'm just trying to pull up some information that I did have. When you apply for your H-1B status, your employer is getting its labor certification, and there's a salary that they have to guarantee that they hit and they pay you for. So when they make alterations to that, they have to amend the H-1B itself for it to be valid. And there are specific situations for when you, put somebody, if they voluntarily leave, for a little bit, what you can do. And there is this 60-day grace period. So let me, I think it might be best if I put it into a document, but let me see if I can, since we do have a few minutes.
Yeah, so I guess a specific case, for example, right, when you do that is, if an employer who employs H-1B workers has, as a result of COVID, had to shut down their business, and these H-1B employees have been furloughed.
Yep.
Does that affect their status per se? Obviously, there's no guarantee that the business may come back anyways, but in the event it does, I'm not sure how the H-1B individual gets affected from a visa perspective.
So for the H-1B visa, there's that 60-day grace period. So nothing happens to them in their status for the 60 days. For the employer, and I'm literally reading off the U.S. code. The employer can incur liability if the H-1B is on a non-productive status, right? So, this is something, if the employer decides to temporarily suspend employment, bench, or furlough, the required wage must still be paid, notwithstanding the sudden economic downturn of COVID-19. So the employer, the H-1B visa holder is fine. Their status will remain, but the employer has an obligation to continue to pay them, right? And then if the employee decides, let's say they contract COVID and they have to leave, right? Once again, you have that 60-day grace period where you're okay, and then you can come back. Then you can't get that grace period again. That's a one-time grace period for H-1Bs. If the employer wants to reduce the wage because economically they're taking a hit, you do have to go back and amend the labor certification for the employer. If you're an H-1B and you're applying for your green card is pending too, that's a whole other situation in which your status has to remain valid, and that employment opportunity that the green card sponsor has created for you has to remain open. So when we have the issue where an entire business shuts down, you have to it's called portability, where you switch over to another employer who will continue that application. So employment law, like literally we could do this for like 4 hours because there's so much nuance. For any employment situations, if you're an H-1B holder or an employer who employs H-1s or L-1s and are not sure how to handle it during the COVID, talk to an immigration professional, because that is a very rigid area of law and we haven't seen a lot of flexibility in it right now. And I'll be honest,
Yeah.
I haven't been doing a lot of that practice in time of COVID either, because there isn't a lot of flex.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely challenging times for all. So one final question before we start to wrap up. It says I applied for my green card renewal last year, and they only extended it for 18 months, and this expires this coming July. Do they need to re-extend?
Yes, I would. If it's expiring July 2020, you want to keep your green card valid, especially in these times. So yes, apply. I mean, I don't know the other situation, but if you're expiring in July, yes, please go ahead and extend so that your
Yeah,
green card stays. Yeah, it's a very short
and,
window
and
of time they extended it for. Like I said, I don't know the facts of the case there's certain situations in which they will only extend for a short period of time, but that's, case
yeah,
by case. Mhm.
and we'll take those applications that you said, right? That the filings are being accepted.
Filings are being accepted, and for the green card extension, that's one of those, there's a few forms you can apply for and just do right online. And this is
Okay.
one of them. The extension can be done right online. And we've seen like the online applications are not experiencing as much of a delay. So even for those of you who are on these temporary visas, like a visitor's visa to extend, the I-539 can also be filed online if you're doing it on your own without an attorney. So Once again, just hop online. You can pay your fees, do everything right online, and that can be taken care of. So, yes, any expirations, that's where the government is offering flexibility, and using COVID as the reason of the extenuating circumstance is working out well because it's valid, right? This is a true situation in which you can't leave the
Yeah.
country or
Yeah. Absolutely. So before we do our closing remarks, for those of you who have joined us a little later than we started, we introduced Sister Hina as one of the founders and someone who co-runs the Pro Bono Network, which is a legal aid nonprofit organization that brings attorneys to those in dire need of legal assistance. So we just want to show you the video that we had ran earlier, for those of you who may have missed it, and then we'll come back for a closing remarks, inshallah.
The need for civil legal aid is so huge, right? There are not enough attorneys to serve all the people who need help. And income should not be a barrier to seeking justice. Pro Bono Network, to me, is this amazing ability to empower attorneys to give back to others. We are bringing more attorneys to those in need.
We are actually serving clients who wouldn't get served otherwise because we're creating projects that specifically address needs that the legal service agencies have told us that they can't serve.
They take care of the training and supervision of their attorneys. The volunteer model of the Pro Bono Network makes it easy for agencies to work with this organization.
We have project managers, we have mentors, we have subject matter experts, and we're paired with another attorney for bigger cases. So you have support, you have training, you have a partner.
Pro Bono Network is great for helping people. So far, I've been primarily writing wills and end-of-life documents, and I know that there are a lot of people who need help doing things. They can't afford to go to a lawyer to do it.
I was going through a very tough situation, a domestic situation. My attorneys made it just smooth and easy, and I felt good again. I felt safe.
Pro Bono Network actually serves as a bridge between two untapped needs. On the one hand, we're serving attorneys who want to do legal work, have wonderful skills to be able to do legal work. And then on the other hand, it's our clients. Our clients have critical legal needs, so we bring those two groups together and we serve both of their needs while doing it.
Yo estaba buscando la ayuda legal porque realmente tenía miedo de que de verdad él me quitara al niño. Entonces, después de eso fue que yo me enteré que podía como calificar para un tipo de visa, la visa U. Pero hasta el momento que yo busqué esa ayuda con Pro Bono Network, no sabía que realmente podía calificar para ese tipo de ayuda. Recuerdo claramente el día que fui a recoger mi permiso de trabajo a las oficinas de Pro Bono Network. Fue un día muy especial para mí.
Since PBN was founded in 2011, hundreds of volunteer lawyers have served thousands of low-income individuals by providing tens of thousands of hours of free legal service. And we've only been able to do that because of the very generous support of our donors.
The reaction that you get from clients is wonderful. They have a legal problem, you're able to help them with it, and that's very gratifying.
Que muchísimas gracias por todo su tiempo que dieron conmigo, y de verdad aprecio mucho lo que hicieron por mí.
So, for those of you who missed my earlier point, we've been blessed to be a partner with Sister Hina and the Pro Bono Network. We've set up a special fund. If you can text the number that we have, you see at the bottom of your screen, 516-299-9952. Just text the word donate, and it will give you a menu of different funds we have available. And one of them is a Pro Bono Network. And alhamdulillah, it's unbelievable the amount of work that they're doing in service to humanity and for those who cannot afford it. So please, any assistance you can provide, will be really grateful. Sister Hina, once again, I really wanted to thank you for your time and your effort in putting this together. I know you're swamped during these times, but alhamdulillah, we had a great turnout online, And inshallah, for everyone who will benefit from this, we really appreciate your time and your advice and guidance on this.
Thank you so much for having me. And I know these are trying times. I hope everyone watching, you're staying, safe and healthy at home. And these are big nights, so I will request some du'as for my family, and I will, of course, keep you all
Inshallah.
in mind. No, grateful to Sijni and to Nasim Co. I'm happy to share this little knowledge that I have and provide some guidance.
Yeah, and just a reminder, if you would like to reach out to Sister Hina for additional questions, please email myself at president@sejni.org, and we'll be happy to share with you. With that, with 3 minutes to spare, inshallah, we will take your leave. Thank you, Sister Hina, once again, and to all of our viewers, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.